Welcome. I'm Raul Lowry Contreras, and this is the Contreras Report, Political Edition. Now, this date that we're taping is the day before Congress or the House of Representatives is scheduled to take an impeachment vote, so I cannot predict what is going to happen, but we will discuss it. First of all, let's discuss what happened on the 6th of January. That was Wednesday, the 6th, when thousands of people gathered in Washington, D.C. to protest, to show support for the President of the United States and his claim that he won the election on November 3rd in a landslide. Now, we all know that that is not true. The vote was 306 electoral votes for Joe Biden Jr., and 232 electoral votes for the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. 270 are required, and he only got 232. But he claims the election was stolen, it was rigged, and that massive vote fraud occurred, and he and his people and his lawyers went before 95 different judges, state and federal judges, and they got one judge to agree on one tiny little thing that didn't matter. The rest of the judges all turned away every single lawsuit that was filed by a battalion of lawyers. These lawyers introduced evidence to lawsuits that was ridiculous and was laughed out of court in every single instance. As one judge put it, a Trump appointee, all he heard was speculation. Speculation. We think this happened, and therefore you should set the election aside and declare Donald Trump the winner. That's what they were saying. Almost invariably, that was the complaint. The complaint consisted of speculation. We think this happened. We think that this company had software that stole votes. Can we prove it? Well, no, we can't prove it, but we think that it happened. But that's not good enough. They had other people that said, we saw illegal ballots being brought in by truck that were food trucks, and we thought it was going to be food, but they were illegal ballots. Well, how were they? Show us the ballots and why they were illegal. Well, we can't do that because we don't have them. Well, why didn't you get some? Well, we couldn't find them. In other words, and their lawyers themselves said that they couldn't produce the evidence. One lawyer, John Eastman of Chapman College in Orange County, California, he wrote a brief in which he said that the rigging and the fraud was so good that they couldn't find any evidence. That's how good it was. Well, that didn't last long because that was decided by the United States Supreme Court. They said, go away. They turned down the application for a hearing. They said no. And the Supreme Court really, really earned their keep with this particular case. They had several cases that were brought before them that they dismissed because there was no substance to the charge. Let me repeat that. The President of the United States claims that he won the election. He got 75 million votes, the most any Republican has ever had. And he says, how could he possibly lose if he got more votes than any Republican in history? Well, that was because the winner, Joe Biden, got 81 million votes or more. It was a difference of 7 million votes. Now, in the Electoral College, that was different. It was 306 to 232. The exact number of votes that Donald J. Trump got in 2016, which he called a landslide. So, by his own definition, Joe Biden was elected President of the United States by a landslide. Well, we know it was a landslide, by 7 million votes on the plus side. But on the electoral vote, it was 306 to 232. Okay, so now we get to January 6th. The President of the United States has been tweeting on his account for weeks, encouraging people to come to Washington, D.C. on January 6th because that was the day that Congress was going to receive the electoral vote formally, and the Vice President of the United States, Michael Pence, would announce who the winner was. Now, Donald Trump asked people to come to Washington and for this giant protest, MAGA, Make America Great Again. That was his thing. And then, I'll come speak to you. And he did this. And he told them he would march with them to the Congress of the United States down the road. And he didn't. He went back to the White House, and he sat there with his television sets, all watching the various channels. By the way, CNN got the most viewers of all other channels combined, I understand, combined. So Trump watched this, and he's screaming and hollering that he would not ever concede, that his people were doing great. His son Don Jr. got up in front of the crowd and really, really got them excited, and he was telling that they had to fight, F-I-G-H-T. And Trump told these people that they had to be strong. He told the crowd, you have to be strong. You can't be weak. Go down there and show them you're strong. Well, we all saw what happened. Now today, the day I'm recording this, I watched the FBI, the head guy in charge of the investigation, and the acting United States Attorney for the District of Columbia talk about what they were doing in the investigation of the incident which occurred the other day. They didn't say much, and I refuse to accept their so-called news conference. I have to tell you, it was really lacking in content. The American people want to know what is going on. Sure, there's been, as of this moment, or as of the moment that the news conference was held in Washington, 20 people had been arrested. That's all. That's it. So far, they've been charged with this or that, and but only 20 people. There were thousands of people there. One Capitol policeman died. One citizen, invader, troublemaker, insurrectionist, traitor, she died. She was shot by a Capitol policeman, and I don't blame him for shooting. If you look at the videos, there was one Capitol policeman that was caught by the crowd, and he was trapped by two crowds of people in a doorway, and he was being squashed, and he was screaming for help. I mean, that's assaulting a federal officer. I want you to know that in my life's experience, I had a federal officer try to push me around one time. Luckily, the chief of police of San Diego was standing there 10 feet away, and I called him, and so before I got mad and hit the federal officer, the chief of police intervened and told his cops that were standing around waiting to arrest me to leave me alone, that I was a friend of his. And he told the federal officer, who was trying to provoke me to hit him, because that's a serious offense, assault a federal officer, really serious. The guy was really hammering on me because he was trying to get me caught up with a group of people that he was overseeing an investigation of. It's my racetrack days, and people racing and gambling, and anyway, it's a long story. Someday you could read about it in a book. Anyway, it's a very serious charge, and this poor guy was being almost killed, but one of them was killed, a Capitol policeman. Apparently, he was hit with a fire extinguisher. You know how big they are. It's big, and they're heavy when they're full. And if you have one of those and you're swinging it around, and you happen to hit somebody on the head, they're dead, and he died. 41-year-old guy wanted to be a policeman his entire life. What a real shame. Okay, so somebody died, murdered. He was murdered, and other people were injured. I read today that up to 58 Capitol policemen have been hospitalized. One other one who was there, we don't know why, but he committed suicide yesterday. have no idea why. But it's a very serious situation. Thousands of people running around breaking windows and invading congressional offices and stealing computers and breaking windows and trashing the place. All in violation of federal law. Every single thing they did was a felony, except for the trespassing, which they're booking everybody on to at least get a book. And so that's what we have. We have this situation, and the FBI and the acting U.S. attorney, a Trump appointee, said nothing but gobbledygook today. Really, really ridiculous. And so we have other things that are on the stove right now that are cooking. So we have to try to pay attention. You have to pay attention to see what's going on, because the House of Representatives is tomorrow. It will have been accomplished by the time you see this, of course. They're going to vote, and I'm sure they're going to pass an article of impeachment, impeaching the President of the United States for sedition and insurrection and all kinds of violations of the 14th Amendment. He gave up his immunity, in this case, by committing a number of crimes, allegedly. You don't have to commit a crime to be impeached. Impeachment is high crimes and misdemeanors. That's not defined in the Constitution. So it's whatever the House of Representatives says it is. So they will vote, and I'm sure they will impeach him. And interestingly enough, the third highest ranking Republican in the House of Representatives, Liz Cheney, is supporting and says she will vote for impeachment. We don't know how many other Republicans are going to join her, but I think a number of them will. For the simple reason that the New York Times reported today that the leader of the Senate, Republican Mitch McConnell, is supporting the impeachment quietly, behind the scenes, because he thinks that this impeachment, which will be overwhelming, way over 50% plus one of the House of Representatives, will so thoroughly humiliate Donald J. Trump that it will assist the establishment Republicans like me, to be able to get rid of Donald J. Trump, make it much easier, because he will be humiliating. The only president in U.S. history to be impeached twice, not once, but twice. No, that's never happened to anybody. And he's only the third president to be impeached anyway. Now, don't forget this. Impeachment is the charge, okay? The trial, the Constitution calls for a trial by the United States Senate and requires that 2/3 of the senators in attendance vote to convict. And then that would take him out of the presidency. Of course, today is the 12th, and in 8 days at noon on the 20th, Trump is gone anyway. But Congress cannot let him get away with this. So they're going to impeach him. I do suspect that the incoming Department of Justice leadership will seriously consider criminal charges because somebody died, and because the Congress of the United States has not been attacked since 1814. Or is it 1812? The War of 1812, when the British captured the White House and the Congress of the United States, the Capitol, and they burned it to the ground. The building you see now replaced the one that the British burned. So what we have is a situation where the Congress of the United States, the building was attacked. There was all kinds of crimes there, and there were congressmen in session, so there's all kinds of other crimes there. Now, did Trump incite the crowd to go down there? That's the legal question. If he did, he will be charged and, I think, convicted, because he won't be tried until after the 20th of January, when he loses his immunity. And additionally, the Washington D.C. Attorney General, which is separate, that's like a state attorney general in the state, He can bring charges, not just the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the acting U.S. Attorney, but the Washington, D.C. Attorney General can bring charges. Right? Now that's a federal offense. These are federal offenses we're talking about. And then in addition to that, the Southern District of New York, the acting attorney, or the acting U.S. attorney there, and the Manhattan attorney, the district attorney, which is a state operation, they're looking into all kinds of crimes, financial crimes, all felonies, all criminal in nature that Trump has allegedly committed over the years. So Donald J. Trump is in real trouble. And all I have to say is someone needs to be punished, not just the scroungy, bearded, cowboys that were running around breaking windows and murdering a Capitol policeman and stealing laptops and all that kind of stuff. Not just them. They all need to be found, and they need to be charged because they all commit, the minute they went inside that building, they were trespassing. So every one of them should be charged at least that. They have to be charged. They have to be punished. But the man who incited them and his son, the fact of the matter is that I can tell you that Donald J. Trump Jr., if he wasn't the son of Donald J. Trump Sr., would be selling shoes. They would have a TV program about him, something like Married with Children, because that's all he's capable of doing. He is not a very bright guy. This is a guy who never served in the military, even though he had himself an Ivy League education. He could have been a naval officer. He could have been an Army officer. He could have been anything he wanted to be. But he didn't want to serve the United States. So you know what he does? Oh, he does fire rifles. Yes. He goes to Africa on safaris and shoots animals, defenseless animals, wildebeests. He goes to Mongolia and shoots a rare bighorn sheep that's so rare the Mongolian government had to issue him a special permit. That's Donald J. Trump Jr. Now, those aren't crimes, but the morality of those things. He's not hunting animals for food. I used to do that when I was young, but one day I gave that up too. I never gave up rifles and shotguns, but I gave up hunting birds and rabbits and animals and deer because I don't need the food. Donald J. Trump doesn't need the food, so what does he kill? Trophy animals that he can have his picture taken with. As for his brother Eric, I don't know if he's so stupid he couldn't commit a federal felony if he tried. He's just so really the dumbest guy I've ever seen on national television. Really, really dumb. And Ivanka, she apparently tried to do something about this while this was going on, but her father didn't pay any attention to her. Okay, we know that the Capitol Police asked for National Guard help 6 times. We know that there were National Guard troops assigned to Washington, D.C., but they were doing traffic control, and at metro stations. That we know. And the Army, the Washington, D.C. police and the Capitol Police kept asking for help. They kept asking for the National Guard, bring them down here. We know they're here. Bring them here to us. And an Army general apparently didn't want to give the order because the order wasn't coming from the White House. And he didn't think, according to reports, this will come out in the official investigation. According to reports, he personally, this Army general or Lieutenant General probably, thought it was bad optics to have National Guard troops at the U.S. Capitol. Apparently, he might be the same general that finally, when the order was given by the acting defense secretary, you notice not the real defense secretary, the acting one, the acting defense secretary ordered the National Guard in to help. And what did they do? Some general decided not to. The general decided not to use Humvees, military trucks and vehicles to carry the National Guard to the Capitol building. No. They had to use private transportation because this general thought it would be bad optics to have the National Guard show up in force. About 1,500 of them. It wasn't even thousands. Now, since then, they've been activated and they come in. The governors of Virginia, and a Democrat, and Maryland, a Republican, were asked by the Washington, D.C. authorities for National Guard help. They activated their National Guard, but they couldn't send them because they needed permission from the Pentagon to send them. They could only send them to the state line where they had to wait. Talk about stupidity. I'll tell you one thing, some general is going to be forcibly retired and he should be reduced in rank. You can't court-martial him for stupidity, but you can reduce him in rank and that will cost him thousands upon thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. We've got to punish these guys. The chief of police asked for the National Guard on 6 different occasions and Trump refused. His staff people are telling reporters, or leaking the information, that he refused to give the order. He could have overridden the generals and simply said, send the National Guard in. That's all they needed to do. Then somebody would have called the Secretary of Defense and said the President has ordered the National Guard into the Capitol building, and that would have been it. They would have been there by taxi cab if they had to go by somehow beside on foot. Trump needs to be punished for this. I don't care if you voted for him. Liz Cheney probably voted for him. Mitch McConnell probably voted for him. And they're rooting for the impeachment. I would hope that when the impeachment, we'll know. By the time you see this, you'll know how many Republicans. But I hope that a bunch of them vote for the impeachment. A whole bunch of them. And then they could all be interviewed and say, Trump has got to go. Trump needs to be punished. Trump is an idiot. Trump is a criminal because he is all those things. And even the people who voted for him, reasonable people who were basically Republicans, even they know it. They held their nose to vote for him to begin with. All those women that voted against him in the suburbs, they voted for him last time. Catholics that voted for him in the suburbs in 2016, they didn't vote for him this time. Remember, whoever carries the white Catholic vote wins the presidency, regardless of party. By the way, I'm not here campaigning as a partisan Republican. I am a partisan Republican, which leads me to comment on what happened in Georgia on the 5th of January, where 2 Republicans were running in the special election against Pastor Warnock, Democrat, and Mr. Ossoff, 33-year-old ne'er-do-well, who's never done anything in his life except spend his family's money. And they both won. They both beat 2 Republican incumbents. David Perdue, who should have won easily because he got 80,000 more votes than Ossoff did in November, and what's her name? I've already forgotten it. Who bragged that she was going to vote to object to the electoral votes of the states of Georgia, her own state. She deserved to lose because she is not very bright. She married well. She grew up in a rich family and that made her rich by transferring land into her name when she was in her early 20s. Very rich, expensive agricultural land. And these people that inherit money, I tell you, they are really a pain in the butt, you know? How many of them that inherit money do well? Papa Bush, George W. Bush, they did fine, and they're good examples. Kennedy did fine, but Johnson didn't, and he didn't inherit a dime. He went to Southwest State Teachers College in Texas. And by the way, Dan Rather went there too. Anyway, So what happened in Georgia on January 5th was the responsibility of the President of the United States, and it was Donald J. Trump who defeated the two Republican incumbents. He personally demolished them because when, on his two visits to Georgia and in tweets, all he could do, instead of campaigning against Reverend Warnock, who making a minister making $250,000 a year, give me a break, and also a ne'er-do-well, instead of campaigning against those guys, he campaigned against the Republican Governor Kemp and Ratzenberger, the Secretary of State, because they wouldn't try to steal the election for him. They told the president, go fly a kite. You lost. We had 3 recounts, one of them by hand. You lost. And then, of course, Trump made the famous phone call. For an hour, he harangued the Secretary of State, threatened him with criminal prosecution if he didn't steal 11,700 votes for Donald Trump. There's another reason why he's getting impeached. There's another reason why he will be charged criminally soon. And now the inauguration. It's in a week. And there won't be a big crowd there this time because it's going to be a virtual inauguration. And that's the way it should be. With the pandemic being what it is, we're dying. Over 3,500 people have been dying this week per day. Per day. The Trump administration totally screwed up the distribution of the vaccinations, the vaccine. Yes, they performed a miracle and pushed and pushed and pushed and got at least one company to produce, Moderna, to produce under government auspices the vaccine that is now being used. The Pfizer vaccine was not produced under government auspices, and it hit the market first. But the Trump administration has no clue about how to get it into the arms of people. Instead of 20 million people being vaccinated a day, we're doing 2 or 3 million people. And like nobody cares. 3,500 people are dying, and a bunch of new people, congressmen, are now coming down. They're testing positive for COVID-19 because while they were being attacked, they were hidden into small rooms and protected by armed policemen, guns drawn. The Republicans weren't wearing masks because those Republicans in Congress are stupid. I wear masks. I got 3 of them in my car. Of course, I'm very vulnerable. I'm old, and I have underlying conditions. And so it behooves me to do the best I can to protect myself. And when I see people running around that don't protect themselves or don't protect the people around them, I want them to hang. Somehow, Congress is trying to pass a law that any congressman that doesn't wear a mask in the Capitol building is to be fined $1,000 per event. Okay, all right. So, on January 20th, we're going to have a new president. I don't know in the next 8 days if Donald J. Trump is going to do something stupid like incite another riot. But he is having people, he is inviting people, he is tweeting to have people come and protest on January 20th. So we don't know what's going to happen. In any event, we'll have a report after January 20th, a political report, in which we'll bring you all up to date. In the meantime, pay attention to what's going on. Read the newspapers, watch television, watch the cable news television. Keep informed. Keep yourself informed and seek the truth. Do yourself a favor. The truth is all we have. Our whole system is based on we support it because we have faith in it. But when 130 Republican congressmen or whatever it was vote to object the electoral votes of certain states, that's not fair. That's stupidity. I have to admit that a personal friend of mine that I helped elect to begin with was one of these that voted. and I suspect I may never speak to him again. I haven't got up enough to send him an email to tell him, but he really irritated me totally with his vote. So did they all that voted, including Kevin McCarthy, who I have supported a lot of times. Welcome to the new brave America. I'm Raul Lowry Contreras. This is the Contreras Report, political edition. We'll have another one right after the inauguration. In the meantime, you might want to subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, because then when I post the new one, you will be automatically notified and you'll know when to go to it. Thank you for being there. I want you to sit back, relax, take a deep breath, and keep faith in the United States of America. The United States of America. The new America that starts January 20th. Thank you.